Hello everyone, welcome to fourth lecture of our basic series. Today we will be learning about programming logic. So since we learned and covered most of the basic concepts in our last three lectures, it is a perfect time for you to start developing your own programming logic, and for that you should be you should be working more on your code, how differently you could approach a certain program. So there is a process of three steps which I call it: visualize, implement, and debug. So first in visualize phase, what you should do is that understand your problem, understand your programming problem, and start visualizing the approach for the solution. So start up start visualizing your approach for the solution of a program and how you're going to implement it. After that, you will be actually going to implement it, and in the end phase, where you debug your code and check if your program meets your requirements, if it actually solves the problem or not. So for that, let's understand with an example. So we'll be coming up with an example where we are going to visualize our approach, discuss the implementation, and in the end we are going to debug our code and check for the solution if it meets our solution or not. So let's move to text editor and start coding. Okay, so here I am at my text editor. So let's take a look at our definition. So create a menu driven program which dynamically takes email and name from user and display it. So let's discuss our approach first. So we need to first of all let's note down our points. So first we need to take input from user. So input from user, and after that we are going to store that input in some array, which will contain our objects of class as elements in it. So note down that, and after that we are going to create an loop which will keep displaying our menu throughout our whole program. So it's going to be an infinite loop, and after that create menu which will display our options, just like input or display or exit, something like that. And after that we are going to, after printing our menu, after creating a menu, we are going to actually grab the user input and store it in some object. So note down that, and after that we are going to store our array, sorry, uh, we are going to store our object in our array, which makes it dynamic actually. So this is the tricky part, and we're going to use array list for that. So we'll be learning something new today also. And after that, moving on to our display part, where we going to display all values from our each objects in our array list and access each array elements and display values from the object. Okay, so this is going to be all for our program today, and let's code our example. So first of all, let's import our classes. So first we are going to need a scanner class for taking user input, and after that let's import our array list also. So it's also in the util package. So import array list and create our class. So public class example dynamic. Let's create two class variables. So first will be string name and email, because that's all we need to store. And let's create our constructor which will assign values to our class variables. So string name, string email, and after that let's assign our values. So this dot name equals to name, and this dot email equals to email. Okay, so class part is done here, and let's create our main method. So public static void main string args, and let's initialize our scanner object. So scanner sc equals to new scanner, and system.in. After that create our array list. So here what we are going to do here is that to create array of our class example dynamic. So this is how you this is how you define array list for certain class. This could be string, this could be integer, or this could be our menu class. Okay, so let's check our example and see if we have any errors. It's always good practice to keep checking errors after you write your code. So okay, here I forgot semicolon. Looks perfect to me. And now let's create our two variables. So we need to take two inputs, so it should be two string values. Correct that, and define our string. So it should be string name and email. After we define our loop, so this loop will keep running throughout our program, and we need our two values. So it should be name, email. Create our local variables and integer input, which will store input from user, which menu item they choose. So so we are going to control our whole program with that. First we define our menu here. So I'll say enter your choice, and after that let's handle the user input. So input equals to, which is our integer variable, and sc.next int, which will our return our choice. And based on the input we are going to handle the user. So let's create our if condition here. So it should be if input equals to 1, which means if user chooses first menu from our menu. So we are going to ask user to enter the details. So it should be enter your name, and we are going to store this in our name variable. So name equals to sc.next, and after that we are going to need our second value, which is email. So system.out.println, enter your email, and after that store it. So email equals to sc.next, and store our object in our array list. So arr.add, which is method of array list. So we are going to create our object and store it. So let's say new example dynamic, which will create our object. So new example dynamic, and pass our two variables, which are name and email. And after that, we are going to handle our second input, which is for display. And to display our variables, display our values from our variables in our object, we need to run a loop to iterate over array list. So integer I error dot size, which will return me size. So here what we are going to do, system.out.println. Okay, first we print some message there. So it should be user details are. So it looks a little clean to the user while you execute it. So, and on the other note, let's also handle, remove that if, okay, let's also handle um, null values. So if user tries to, if user tries to access the display method, even if they didn't input anything, so it could raise some unhandled situation, and which we don't want that. So let's handle that properly. So system.out.println, if size is equals to 0, which means our array is empty, our array list is empty, then print nothing to display here. And let's continue in our for loop here. So system.out.println, and to access the elements in our list, we are going to say arr.get and pass I, which is our iteration variable, and access name from that. Remove that parenthesis, and it's done. So let's format it properly. So name is, and let's concat our string. So name is, and it will print whatever name our object has in the class. So let's execute our code for our name only, and let's see if we have any errors. And Java example dynamic, enter your choice, and let's actually create our menu, which I forgot to create before. So enter your choice, and the first should be enter details, and second option is display display users. Save that. Okay, so this looks a little imperfect. It needs to be in the new line, but anyway, it works. So let's enter our name, entering some random details, and okay, so it prints details correctly. So let's fix our formatting a little. So it should be slash n here. Okay, looks perfect. And after that, let's print our email ID also. So system.out.println, and email is, let's concat. So arr.get I, and access our email variable. So it is accessing our email variable from our class, and the values we passed while creating our object here in the input section. And after that, handle the handle the any other input if user sends there. So I'll say please enter valid input. Suppose we have three suppose we have three menus only, and if user enters randomly anything else, so let's handle that also. And also add option where users can terminate the program. So it should be another menu for that. And this should be in the else if part. So else if input equals to else 9. So let's exit from our code. So it should be break here. It's quite simple as that. And let's put a menu option for that also. So I'll say slash n and 3, press 9 to exit, and it's done. So let's save our code and let me clear screen first and say clear, and okay, looks good. This menu should be aligned better way. And again, compile our code, execute it. Okay, so looks perfect now. So let's say 2. Okay, it says nothing to display here. Works fine. Press 9, it exits properly. And now let's input our details. So I'm going to enter some random details. So to check if it is really dynamic or not. So ABCD at the rate abcd.com. Okay, so let's enter another detail. So I'll say Jane Doe. Okay, now let's print our user data. Okay, so it prints our output properly here. You can see here name is Mahek, email mm@mm.com, abcd Jane Doe. So it works quite well and it meets our requirement also. So this is how we did it in our today's example. You could come up with your own approach to handle this problem in a better way. This was just an example of how you can do it, how you could do it, and how could you plan your code, and how could you improvise your programming logic in a better way. So this was just a simple example of how you could do it. So I'll suggest you to proceed with the same program or any other different program, but a little logical program, so you could understand the code better way, understand the coding in a better way. And until you start approaching the code by your own, you won't be able to learn properly. Programming is all about practical approach. So until you don't until you don't apply the same practical approach in your day-to-day life, you won't be able to be a proper programmer. So start practicing your code, and I hope you could relate to it and it helps you. So if you have any doubts, if you have any queries, you could always contact me in the Telegram group. I'll be always available there. So this was all for our this was all for our lecture today, and I'll see you in the next one. So peace.